Good afternoon, everybody. How's it going? It's me, Comic Crack, and we didn't have a chat this afternoon. I have this little gig going. I have a bit of time right now. I have this gig going that's going to take me away from the chat today, probably next Sunday, and it's looking like the Sunday after that. Working on a little film that's coming here from Montreal and shooting here. Yeah, so I'll leave that at that. So I'm not going to be around. Rasa and I were talking. We may do a chat kind of during the week. I have Tuesday and Wednesday off, so we may try to schedule something for one of those days, Tuesday or Wednesday. Hello, Rasa. Just kind of talking about you here for a second. All bad things. I'm just kidding. All good things. So we're going to talk about maybe doing one Tuesday or Wednesday because that's going to work for me. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we may, basically what I'm saying is we may do kind of midweek chats. I know that's not the best time for people to kind of tune in live, but I'm still reading a few books, although this week I've read very, very little. I just haven't had time to. So, so this one I'm gonna do I'm gonna try to do a Sunday wrap tonight. I don't know if I'm going to. I'm gonna really try to because I do miss, as Rasa and I have both said to each other, kind of off air or in chats and things, like I really, really do miss it when we don't do it. I really do enjoy it. I love hanging out with her. I love hanging out with the guests that come through. I love talking about the books that we've read. It's a really nice way to kind of like ease into the next week. I find it really refreshing. So tonight I'll probably do one. So, and then here's where we flip the script a little bit. I need to talk about something. So fair warning up front, this is not going to be comics related. It is not going to be comics related whatsoever. So if you're here for comic talk, fair warning. Woody Harrelson has been in the news, and I cannot listen to any of this dialogue anymore without responding because I do feel like there's some points and discussion that just isn't happening, and I just can't listen to it anymore. So let's start out with this. I personally, Terrence Fuller, I do not give a single shit if you've had 97 shots, if you've had 13 shots, or if you've had 0 shots of the vaccination. I seriously do not care. It is your choice. I do not give a single shit if you have chosen or not chosen rather, to get these shots. I really, truly, honestly don't. It is your choice, and I firmly believe that. Woody Harrelson has been in the news because he's been talking some stuff, and he's out promoting this Champions movie. Champions was shot here in Winnipeg, and I'm also going to say this: I was not working on that movie. I did not have any personal interactions with him. This is not about him specifically. This is more about a bigger maybe about a bigger kind of discussion I feel that needs to be had. He has sparked some discussion, and there's some new discussion that's been happening lately that I do feel is worth talking about, and how it relates to people working for a living, and how it relates to just workers, just about people going to make a living. Hello, Gore Vidal. Hello, Donald Rex. So let's start with kind of what he said. I printed some stuff off for me because I wanted to make sure that, and again, please understand, this is not specific to him. This is just, he's this jumping off point. He speaks firmly about COVID mandates are absurd. He feels that they're absurd, but doesn't believe that anyone has the right to demand that an actor wears a mask on set or get vaccinated against the virus in order to work on a film, and remains unsure what will happen in the future of the industry. He told the New York Times Magazine, "Now, to get an indie done, especially with all of the COVID protocols, which to me are rather absurd. I don't know what's going to happen. The fact that they're still going on, I don't think that anybody should have the right to demand that you're forced to do the testing, forced to wear the mask, and forced to get vaccinated 3 years on. I'm just like, let's be done with this nonsense. It's not fair to the crews. I don't have to wear the mask. Why should they? Why should they have to be vaccinated? How's that not up to the individual? The Triangle of Sadness star went on to add that he shouldn't even be talking about his views on the matter because the situation makes him so angry, as he pleaded for all measures designed to combat the virus when the pandemic in 2020 began in 2020 to stop. He added, I shouldn't be talking about this shit. I'm assuming they say it expletive. It makes me angry for the crew, the anarchist part of me. I don't feel that we should have forced testing, forced masking, and forced vaccination. That's not a free country. Really, I'm talking about the crew, because I can get out of wearing a mask. I can test less. I'm not in the same position they're in, but it's wrong. It's 3 years. Stop. So that's just the quick snapshot of what he said. One of the things that he talks about is that the guidelines that are in place for film. So just to give you a quick definition, I will hold this up as well too. And for those of you who are here, please don't be scared. Like I said, I truly, truly do not care if you've been vaccinated or not. And I really need you to believe me on that. There's something called the AMPTP. It is and this is online. This is not like private documents. This is accessible to anybody at any time, anywhere, if you have access to the internet. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, rather. So it's an organization that came together early days of the pandemic in conversations with the unions and guilds. My understanding of it was that it was kind of headed by SAG-AFTRA, which are the actors union. They represent the actors. Now, this was based in the United States, but it ended up having all over North America. I can't speak for other places in the world because I don't work in other places in the world. I can speak for Canada, and specifically I can speak for Winnipeg. Winnipeg, these were on studio shows. These were the guidelines that a production had to go and work under, especially if you had SAG-AFTRA members on your film crew. So that's the actors. So people like Woody Harrelson, etc. Where the problems start coming in, again, from what they've done is they update. When they do these updates, they revisit it every about 4 months-ish. And they look at revisiting things, and they look at adding some wording, changing some wording, because obviously, like the rest of us, things have changed over these few years. The virus has not stayed the same. It has changed. It's gone through a bunch of different strains. Our knowledge about things has changed. Our knowledge about masks and what kinds are better. Early days, we ourselves bought fabric masks because that's what we were told. Hey, these ones work pretty good. Then we started getting information that those don't actually work. KN95s were the ones here in Winnipeg by our own health officials that we were told early on, don't use the surgical masks. KN95s are the ones. The other ones don't seal properly, etc., etc., etc. So we were mostly going based off of that information for myself and my family. What happens with these, it's called the Return to Work document, the COVID-19 Return to Work Agreement. So when they do some of these updates, they update little chunks. Now, I think it was July 19th, 2021. They updated one section, COVID-19 vaccination, mandatory vaccination. Where permitted by law, a producer may implement a policy providing that the following individuals must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 as a condition of employment and or prior to entering the workplace, subject to reasonable accommodations as required by law for individuals who cannot be vaccinated due to disability or sincerely held religious belief, practice, or observance. And then they break it down specifically to Zone A. At this time in 2021, Fully vaccinated meant that you had 2 shots, your 2 shots. There was a little blip in time where it was employers here in Winnipeg were asking people which shots they get, and we were advising the employees, you do not have to share that information. Everybody had, as I'm sure you all did wherever you're living, we had cards that said you were vaccinated. And at that time, again, fully vaccinated meant 2 doses. So you showed that card. It didn't tell on ours anyway. It didn't tell which ones that you had. So you didn't have to share that information. But that was implemented for some zones, and specifically it was implemented for zones that were working in and around actors, because obviously an actor isn't going to be performing with a mask on and a face shield and things. They're going to be taking that stuff off. And if you're in the makeup department, you're this close to their face, putting makeup on them and doing touches on their hair before they go to camera. So the people themselves, the employees themselves, they would be masked, and there was quite a long period of time where it was also a shield for those employees dealing with those actors not wearing masks. Everybody on a film production is an employee. An actor is an employee. The head of the lighting department is an employee. The director of photography is an employee. They are the employees. The employers are the producers. The people that are funding the movie, the studios that they're attached with, they are the employers. And I find that that's something that is really important to understand as well, because that relationship is crucial to a lot of these conversations that are happening right now. So an actor like a Woody Harrelson would be an employee. Are there different things that he deals with as an employee? 100% there are, the masks being the big one. But when it comes to everything else, he's an employee. So you have to follow those policies. Let me get my right paper before I say a date out loud. No, sorry, that's January 23rd, 2023. I missed it here. Here we go. Here it is. So February 15th, 2022. And there it is there. Again, printed directly from, you can go to the SAG-AFTRA website and you can find all the links. And like I said, this is not confidential information. This is out there on the internet. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can go and access this information. February 15th, 2022. When we look at the definition of fully vaccinated, modify the definition of fully vaccinated to provide as follows: effective March 15th, 2022, for individuals employed in the United States, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Only individuals who are up to date on their vaccines, as that term is defined by the CDC, shall be considered fully vaccinated. So at that time, the CDC was saying that you had to have your 2 doses plus 1 booster to be now considered fully vaccinated, that your vaccinations were up to date. So now we're talking 3 shots. There is some wording in here also about the Novavax or AstraZeneca vaccine. A little bit. So again, there's some wording specific to the types of vaccinations that you had, but generally up to date was now considered to, you've had your 2 doses plus your booster. So when I look at our membership at our local, at the time I had a lot of calls from members who either did not have all of those or did not have any of them, that were effectively blocked from working. So I need to remind you again, this document was agreed to by, so the local that I worked for, I don't work there any longer, was IATSE, so IATSE. IATSE themselves were also part of these negotiations. All of the unions and guilds were part of these negotiations and all agreed to have this wording in these documents that were applicable to their own members. So you had unions backing these agreements, that were mandating people to be vaccinated, that you could not work unless you were vaccinated. To me personally, Terrence Fuller, human being, that's horseshit. A union should not be in place where they're looking to impose limitations on employment for their members. So if we think of work in general, if we think of labor, let's use the term labor. Where I live, I believe I should have looked this up. I don't know because I know that the minimum wage is changing, but at that time it was around $11 or $12 an hour was the minimum wage. To get a manual labor job or just get a labor job where you don't have special training, you may not even have finished high school, you can go out and get yourself a job and you can earn minimum wage. In our local, the Winnipeg, Manitoba local of IATSE 856, I think now currently our lowest wage is just over $15 an hour. And that's for someone who would be a trainee. So if I come into the grip department, my wage is probably like, let's say the lowest tier of the movie. We break up the budgets and they create tiers. If you have a bigger budget, you're considered a tier 1 movie potentially, which means that the rates to work on that show are higher than if you had a tier 5 movie. So I can come in off of the street with no special skills. All I need to know is how to lift heavy things and move them from one place to another. And I can get a job where I'm earning about $20 an hour to start at the lowest end of the scale. Limiting workers' abilities to get access to jobs is crazy talk to me, is insane talk to me, that you would actually be able to limit someone who doesn't have the education when there's so many people that are having to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. There's a fight for a minimum wage of $15 an hour that's been going on for years, when if we really think about it, now that minimum wage should probably be 16 or 17. It is coming slowly here again in Manitoba. I don't know what it's like. The conversation is like where you're from, but there's talk here in Canada and specifically in Manitoba and Winnipeg of that minimum wage. Like I said, I believe it was this year. I apologize. I don't remember the exact month and what the rate was going to go up to. I think the idea was that by October 2023, the minimum wage was going to be $15 an hour. But I apologize. I didn't print that one out. So putting these limitations on people to stop them from being able to make a decent living is problematic to me, first and foremost. Going back to the phone calls that I would get calls from people who they could not work and they were on the verge of losing their house. We had come through a pandemic, just like the rest of the world. All of the work, all of the film production shut down for quite a long time. There wasn't anything. It wasn't that if you weren't kind of around the longest, you could get that one show was going. There was nothing happening, as I'm sure it was for you as well. We were locked down. Everything was closed. You couldn't even go out and walk around the block technically, right? So now you have people coming out of financial hardships and they're looking to get back into work. And now there's these documents that are now limiting who can come back to work. And if you want to come back to work, you have to do A, B, and C. Let's not kid ourselves that these policies are in place for a very good reason. A production is a lot of money. We're talking millions of dollars to do a movie, even on a small end. So it is 100% from a business standpoint. If you get shut down because COVID rips through your set and everybody's homesick and you can't film your movie, that is a lot of money that you're out of. There's a lot of factors in that. There's actor availability. There's all sorts of things that are keeping you to a very, very strict time allotment to shoot your movie. So if shit goes south, you're essentially fucked. What was happening from the insurance side from shows are there was insurance companies that were saying, if you do not have COVID policies in place for your production and you get shut down due to COVID related illness, I think is what the wording was specifically, your insurance is null and void. So sort of trying to force the hand of the employers to implement COVID policies, whether that's a COVID supervisor that's going around and monitoring, whether that's a testing regimen for all of the crew or very specific amounts, whether that's pre-screening by doing swabs, whether that's, again, early on in the conversation, there was a lot of focus on air movement and cleaning surfaces. So they had cleaning teams that were cleaning surfaces, cleaning gear very well, limiting who gets to go into a smaller set, how many people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these things in place, because again, I'm just focusing on one small section out of a document that's probably 107 pages-ish. It's a substantial document with a whole bunch of things in them. So let's just be honest with that's the part where that's the business side of it, and I absolutely understand that 100%. My problem remains the same though. When you start having employees on shows that are in a certain position where maybe they're the actor and they are allowed to do whatever it is that they want, including getting into vehicles with our members and not wear masks, sit in the front seat, not go and get tested, keep local bars open till all times of the morning, bring in a ton of their friends so they're over the max of what they could have at that time because there was restrictions on dining in bars and things. When people that are in those positions that can then skirt those rules that affect everybody else and still get work. And I'm getting calls from members who are at home saying, Terrence, I have 5 more days and I'm going to get kicked out of my house. I am going to lose my mortgage. I have missed my child support payment. Whatever it happens to be becomes very problematic to me. The lack of understanding in what's currently the conversation is that's going on in the mass media, I think for the most part, they're nailing it. What I don't see happening nearly strong enough is that kind of a conversation. The fact of the matter is that there's a lot of departments within film and television production where the bar for entry is very, very low. You do not need special education. You do not even need to have finished high school to be able to get into some of these departments. And you can start in a job that is going to pay you, again, $20, $25, $30 an hour, depending on the tier and the budget of that movie. You can stand to make a lot of money and put yourself in a really good position to be able, especially after a pandemic, get yourself out of that hole, give yourself a little bit of a boost. So hearing some of these fucking people talk about this shit, like it really it makes me angry. I'm really trying to keep focus here. It just really makes me angry because there's all of these, the simple fact of the matter that the unions backed this kind of thing has been mind-boggling to me since day one of this conversation. Why wouldn't an actor be compelled to get vaccinated or wear a mask as other film set employees? Is there an exemption? Is there an exception in their contract rather? I would just say, kind of take that thought a little bit further. Who is going to be the one to go and tell Woody Harrelson or someone like him? Let's take his name out of it. Let's take insert any name of any actor that's kind of that higher echelon. Who is going to go to him and say, hey, listen, you need to put your mask on. Hey, listen, you can't do da 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 da. And the response is, go fuck yourself. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, or I'm leaving. Now, if you're making a movie that is budgeting on a Bruce Willis or a fucking Woody Harrelson or a fucking insert name here, are you going as an employer? And that's part of the thing that also bothers me about it, because when I had members who were not allowed to go onto these shows and not allowed to be employed on specific shows, when I would go and visit shows and I would see those same shows that had those supposed very strict regulations, they would not even be following their own COVID restrictions that they wrote themselves. Yes, they used this as a template and they used other documents as templates, but at the end of the day, the employer wrote their own COVID policies. When I would go and visit and see them not even following their own COVID policies, knowing that there's people sitting at home that couldn't get hired on that show due to those exact same COVID policies, it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. You either follow your policies and every employee has to follow those policies, or you don't. And again, if you want to follow those policies, go for it. As ridiculous as I might think that it is, if you want to follow those policies, who the hell am I to tell you not to? It's your job site. You do what you feel is necessary. But if you're going to, you got to follow all of them, and everybody's got to follow them. So it creates this kind of tiered system. And that's kind of what Woody was talking about in this. He's talking more about the crew who doesn't have a choice. He has a choice. And trust me, he made that choice very fucking vocal. So that's the part that really bothers me the most. And I just wish that it was focused on more in the mainstream and the kind of outside of the mainstream news that I watch. I was just watching Rising on the Hill and they were talking about it, and they just missed some fundamental points on it that just got me frustrated. And that was kind of the last straw. We're like, fuck this. I've got to have a conversation about this. From a legal liability position, I'd think failure to have such restrictions would open a film production to litigation in the event an employee became ill or worse, died. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know that that's true. I'd be more than willing to meet with your lawyers, Gore, and have a conversation with Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, and sit down with them, because I would like to know that. I don't believe that to be the case, though. When we were in the midst of the pandemic, when the individual cities, towns, provinces, wherever, or states, wherever you happen to live, if there was COVID mandates, then you'd have to follow that. The thing with all of this is, for us here in Winnipeg, there was a document that was also written by a local producers guild here, that hasn't been updated since 2021. And there's still shows that are going out and citing that document. Now, those ones are recommendations. They made sure to put recommendations, even though people were using those as the law of the land, right? So if someone died from COVID, could an employer of the film production be considered liable? I really don't know, is the simple answer to that. Like I said, my gut says probably not, but I don't know. Yeah, so I'd be willing to let that one slide. I really don't know. I think that's all I wanted to say about it. I had to get it off my chest. Thank you very much for listening. I hope everybody's good out there, and I'll see you during the week. I'll probably come back tonight to do the Sunday wrap, but again, I haven't read too much, so it'll be pretty short. And then look for Rasa and myself Tuesday or Wednesday. And if you're around and you can hang out with us for a live comic chat, that would be fantastic. If not, just make sure that you watch the replay. Right on. Thank you, Gore Vidal. Thank you, Donald Rex. Thank you, Rasa. We'll talk to you later.